Okay, thank you all for coming. I'm here today to officially announce our plan to audit the St. Louis Public School District. I know interest has grown dramatically in the recent weeks for a comprehensive review of the district's finances, as well as the decisions made by district officials and the school board that affect the many children who attend St. Louis Public Schools. I want to acknowledge the request we received from several public officials, including Representative Donna Behringer, who's here with us today, who have called on us to conduct this audit, and I appreciate their commitment to putting the well-being of our young people first, and their resolve to fight for transparency and accountability within the St. Louis Public School District. But I want to also be clear that we are here today not just to answer their call, but to answer the call of the many families who have more questions than answers when it comes to the ability of their school to provide a quality education. We're here for the young people who deserve to receive a quality education, but right now, just a little over a week away from the start of school, don't know if they will even have reliable transportation to get there. We're here for the taxpayers who deserve to know if their tax dollars are being used responsibly by the district, and to have a better understanding of how the decisions made by the district impact the education of the young people of St. Louis. We've been concerned with the performance of the St. Louis Public School District for some time now, and in fact, this was an audit that was already on our audit plan to begin this fiscal year. However, the events that have become public in the recent weeks have made it imperative that we move that timeline up. That's why we're committed to beginning our audit immediately so that we can provide answers to many questions that the parents and the children and the taxpayers of St. Louis have. This audit is also part of a larger commitment that I made on day one of my service as a state auditor to prioritize audits of school districts in all parts of our state. If you look at how often schools were audited under past administrations, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of one school district audit per year that was taking place, many of those occurring only as a result of a successful petition by citizens. Given the incredible importance of the work done by our schools, the tremendous amount of state tax dollars that are invested each year in K-12 education, and the undeniable interest that parents and taxpayers have in how our schools are performing, it made no sense to me that we so frequently conducted a thorough assessment of our schools. And for those reasons, we've made audits of our school districts a priority during my time as state auditor. In fact, with the audit of the St. Louis Public School District, we'll now have 4 school district audits in progress, including one at Francis Howell, which is very nearby here. Again, this is about giving parents and taxpayers access to the information they deserve to have about how their schools are operating, and also to give school districts a roadmap they can follow to operate more efficiently and effectively to serve the kids of Missouri. I know the school board has already hired a firm to look at some of the issues that have been documented to date, and Mayor Jones is putting out an RFP for an audit. But I want to explain briefly how a performance audit like the ones my office regularly conducts can provide the kind of thorough review a regularly scheduled financial audit cannot. The letter sent to me by Mayor Jones mentions the district's operating budget and the $17 million budget surplus that became a projected deficit of $35 million. Our audit team is going to thoroughly review the district's finances to determine how the district's budget situation deteriorated so rapidly. And if there is waste or fraud that took place in the district, we're going to work to identify that and bring it to the attention of the public and any relevant authorities if that becomes appropriate. There are also allegations of contracts being awarded to vendors without a bid process, and the vendors that have connections to the current superintendent who is now on paid leave, as well as contracts that didn't go through any oversight or competitive bidding, oversight from the board in addition to not going through competitive bidding. These are items we're going to look at to determine if these decisions were made in compliance with state law as well as district policies. The same can be said for the hiring decisions of the top staff positions that allegedly went to individuals who worked with the superintendent when she was employed with Seattle Public Schools. Our audit team is going to closely look at these hiring decisions and employment contracts that were awarded to determine if they were made appropriately. I know the transportation issue is critical to the parents and students of this district, and as part of the performance audit we're going to conduct, we are going to thoroughly evaluate the circumstances and the decision-making that led to the many kids in this district that are potentially going to be taking city buses or rideshare services to get to school. And these are just a few examples of our audit objectives and the things that we'll look at as part of this audit so that taxpayers can gain a much better understanding of how this school district is performing and where it can make improvements to prevent these problems from happening in the future. I ask that everybody be patient with our process because we want to do a thorough review, and it's going to take some time. As you guys are well aware how long some of these audits take, in particular as we've been through the St. Louis Circuit Attorney process and I've talked to many of you about that. But we know that the work we're doing with this audit is going to be incredibly important to the people of St. Louis and to all those in Missouri who care about the quality of education that we provide to our kids. We're going to officially begin our audit at the next school board meeting, which is on August 13th. And you have my commitment that we will do everything in our power to work as efficiently as we can to give families and taxpayers the answers they deserve. Before I conclude my remarks, I do want to say that the school board has been cooperative in our initial inquiries, and that's a great first step, and we're looking forward to their continued cooperation as this audit progresses. And finally, I want to call on parents, educators, and anybody who might have any knowledge of the goings-on or the issues at the St. Louis Public School District that we should be aware of to get in touch with our office. Please come forward through our whistleblower hotline. You can go to auditor.mo.gov. There's a link to the whistleblower hotline there. The phone number for the whistleblower hotline, if you prefer to call via phone or don't have internet, is 1-800-347-8597. Or if you prefer to email us, the email address for the hotline is moaudit@auditor.mo.gov. And you know, it's important for whistleblowers to come forward when they can, because I mean the fact that it has taken as long as it has for this information to become public and was only brought to our attention by becoming public is an example of if there was a whistleblower that could have come forward earlier, we could have gotten in before as much damage that has potentially been done was done and stopped some of that from occurring. And for anybody who does share information with us, rest assured that your identity will remain protected. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
You said you were already planning to audit St. Louis public schools because you have concerns. Can you explain what those concerns are?
Well, with the district being turned back over to local control, one of the big concerns we have is the proficiency of the students in the district. And that's one of the things we look at when we're determining and this is a fairly new, this school audit program is fairly new. It's really only been prioritized since I took office at the beginning of last year. But you know, nearly 80% of the kids in St. Louis public schools don't read proficiently. And things like that and it's also one of the largest school districts in the state. You know, tremendous budget, lots of state taxpayer money in addition to the local taxpayer money going to the district. And so we update our audit plan every 6 months. We have an audit plan process where we plan out the audits on a rolling basis for 12 months in advance, and the St. Louis Public School audit was slated to begin later this year.
Is the scope of this audit different than the one you originally had planned for 2025?
Well, we conduct performance audits that generally have kind of standard objectives of looking at compliance with laws, very relevant laws. We look at the efficiency and effectiveness of management decisions and things of that nature. A lot of times when we go into an audit, we have known issues. We know that there's something wrong, and that's what triggers us to go in. And so that automatically at the beginning is part of the scope. But in any audit, we go in, we conduct initial survey work, we talk to staff, and use that process to identify where we think we need to be looking and where the audit work needs to be focused. St. Louis Public Schools is a very large organization, and so there are going to be many, many avenues that you could go down with an audit. We want to make sure that the work we're doing is efficient, we're not wasting audit resources, and that we aren't duplicating efforts with the financial statement auditors that come in. We don't want to waste taxpayer money through duplication of effort. So we're going to focus on areas that are unique to us, the expertise that we have in performance audits, and the scope of the audit will be determined once it's begun and the survey work has started to take place.
Over issues like the budget and potentially vendor contracts, is that already part of what you had planned for 25, or is that now new beyond just moving the audit up to now?
Procurement and budget are certainly two things that would be considered during the scope of a typical performance audit, because there are laws that govern both. They have to have a budget in place, they have to pass a budget, and so if we looked at the budget and identified it in the span of a year, they went from a $17 million surplus to a $35 million deficit, that would warrant further investigation on our part to determine how that happened. And procurement is a very common thing for us to look at, because there are, in many instances during audits, we find that procurement laws were violated, and so that's a routine thing that we look at when going in to audit any entity, whether it's a school district or a county or any other type of entity. So yeah, both of those things would have almost certainly come to light through the audit process. But now that we know that there are at least serious allegations that seem very credible of issues in those areas, we'll definitely make sure that's a top priority of the audit. No, and that's why I want to be clear that, you know, there's allegations that the budget has gone from $17 million surplus to a $35 million deficit, and you know, I've seen comments about they have a fund balance, things like that. But obviously, if there is a deficit, you can only operate on a deficit for a given period of time that the fund balance supports, then you've got a major problem on your hands. So yeah, if it turns out that the budget information is incorrect and that there is not a $35 million deficit, then that will be information that people will have as well. The goal of the audit is to get to the bottom of the story and provide the facts without bias. And if there's an area where they've done a good job, then it's not going to be an audit finding. Are you talking about the financial statement audits that they conduct? I've not yet reviewed any of the financial statement audit work. When we get into the audit, the audit staff will look at prior audits of the district, and obviously I think the mayor put out an RFP for those audit services just last week potentially. I'm not sure if it's come out yet or not, but she had mentioned to me that was going to be coming very soon, and we'll be looking at that RFP as well to determine the scope of the audit that she's trying to contract for, to try to make sure that we're looking at things that are novel and that we're not duplicating effort. Well, we're you know, all of our role, the whole role we play is to audit what happened and how we got to where we are, and if they are complying or not complying with the law, and provide recommendations as to how to make sure that they become compliant with the law and prevent a future lapse in compliance. So that is what we will do. We'll look at, like I said, the circumstances. You know, there's reporting that indicated that the bus contractor gave short notice and canceled the contract. What led to that? What led to the cancellation of the contract? Was there something the school district did that could have been avoided to prevent that from taking place? And what contingency plans did the school district have in place, you know, for a failure by their contractor? And those are going to be the types of things we look at. This is a very large audit, and there with the potential for serious violations of procurement laws, and if we end up dealing with fraud issues, those are the types of things that can extend the time frame for releasing an audit, and if there needs to be cooperation with law enforcement. My goal, you know, in a lot of these big audits of a large entity, they typically, you know, they can typically take about a year to get all the way through the process, because there's field work, there's, you know, we have to request information, wait for it to be delivered to us. We have to give the district a reasonable amount of time to respond to our inquiries. We have to evaluate all the information, and then ultimately it has to go through a reporting process, which involves many layers of review to ensure that all the findings that end up being included in the report are well supported, and that the audit is a fair representation of the condition of the district. It is, and you know, what I would say to them is that we are going to try to make sure that we do not interfere with the district's ability to do their job of ensuring transportation is provided to the kids, make sure that they're able to provide this education that these kids are owed this year. But we also want them to know that if this audit does take a year, the goal is that at the end of this year we'll have suggestions, recommendations for the school district that they can follow to hopefully get on the path to significantly improving the way they deliver the education to the children of St. Louis.
I'm sure some parents are wondering, how did we get to this point? How did we get here? Do you think there needs more needs to be done to kind of regulate, or what do you think that needs to happen, not only with St. Louis Public Schools, but maybe other school districts as well? I know you're doing audits in multiple schools, but what else can be done?
Well, one of the things I think we need to consider is the oversight provided by DESE, you know, and any laws that are relevant in that context to determine if the governance at the board level and at the state level has been appropriate, you know, if the oversight has been appropriate, whether that be from the board of district operations and personnel or of DESE of the district.
You said the school board has been cooperative. Have you reached out to the superintendent? Has she been cooperative, or spoken to vendors?
We informed the school district. I think we made contact with them on Monday and informed them of the audit. And the initial call was made to the interim superintendent. I don't think we were able to make contact with her. I think the first successful contact was made with the school board president. So that was that's all we've spoken to as of now, and we wouldn't begin doing any additional work such as contacting vendors until we entrance the audit on August 13th.
How big a staff do you have for something like this?
So staff, on an audit of this nature, we have staff auditors and then a senior auditor, which runs the job. We call him an in charge. There's an audit manager that's above the in charge, and then an audit director that's above the manager. And that's pretty much the workflow in the office. I would say on an audit like this, there will probably be a couple of staff auditors, one in charge, one audit manager, and one audit director that are involved in the audit.
Will your scope include academic curriculum and so forth, and just how the money trail would go?
Yeah, we intend to make curriculum a part of the audit because a significant issue at the district here is financial in nature and budget related, procurement related. You know, we're going to prioritize those types of things with our audit work, but curriculum is something that we intend to look at, you know, compliance with relevant policies and laws that may exist relating to curriculum. You know, for an example, there's a recent legislation that was passed regarding reading plans for kids that are not proficient in reading, and looking at the progress of the district and complying with that new law. And you know, do the kids that are not proficient have individualized reading plans in place? Things like that are going to be curriculum-based work that is done. But in any situation, when you're conducting an audit and you have an audit objective, it has to fall back on some criteria. So we can't be subjective in saying, well, Scott Fitzpatrick, State Auditor, doesn't like this curriculum, so that's an audit finding. There has to be some basis in law or in policy to determine is the district complying with relevant laws and their own policies in the way that they're delivering curriculum. And so that's how we would view the curriculum issue.
Follow up on that. When you say you're prioritizing the financials, are you focusing on finding conclusions in the financials and then going to focus on the academic side and proficiency side, or is it all going to be released at once, both aspects when they're ready?
Most likely, in these sort of circumstances, it's all just going to become one report. If there is a really big reason to split it into two reports, that we've done that in some cases on county governments where we're looking at each elected official. If we find serious problems with one elected official, sometimes that will split off into its own report, and the rest of the county would get issued separately. You know, so in this case, if we feel like there's a statute of limitations issue or something that would require us to separate the report into two reports, we could consider doing that. But the goal is always to do the full audit, at once, and have all the findings together in one report and issued as a single report.
Will the scope include compliance with the Sunshine Law?
We always look at Sunshine Law as a part of our audits of any entity, and yeah, so that includes board meetings where closed sessions conducted appropriately, that they go in and out of closed session, the the right way. When they were in closed session, were they discussing stuff that actually can be discussed in closed session, or were they discussing stuff that really should be discussed in open session? Those are types of things we look at on every audit, and this will be no exception to that.
In light of the new law that was passed giving the auditor's office some expanded scope, we had a transition here from one superintendent to the next. Does this law give the taxpayer the ability to jump in a transition like this, or just after a transition to make sure that the books are being kept appropriately?
Does it allow a taxpayer to? What's the? I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the new law gives you that power to go in and edit an audit an entity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in this particular situation, was there an opportunity for a taxpayer or a parent to jump in to your office and say, hey, we need
Yes.
this, we need
So the new law does not affect school districts. We already had the discretion to audit school districts. It's been in place, I think, since 2008, so 16 years that the auditor has had the ability to audit school districts. The House Bill 2111 that was just passed deals more with like local governments such as cities and fire districts and things like that. And it does give us additional authority during our investigative process. So we conduct investigations many times before advancing to an audit. And one of the challenges we had was we didn't have the authority to issue subpoenas during an investigation like we do during an audit. And so House Bill 2111 extended our subpoena power to the investigative process, which will help us in cases where we're having a difficult time getting cooperation out of an auditee. It'll help us gather documents during an investigation to determine if we really do need to go into a full audit. But House Bill 2111 wouldn't have had any impact on our ability to do what we're doing here today, or a taxpayer's ability to call us on the hotline about issues at St. Louis Public Schools. Yes, happy to report that after our last time we were here asking for help finding Kim Gardner, we did finally get in touch with her. She did speak with the auditors and answer the questions that we had. And that is now done with field work. So we're in the report process now, where the report is being drafted. And my commitment earlier this year was that we would have that report out this year, and that commitment still remains in effect.
Did she reach out to y'all, or did you guys find her?
Well, what happened was essentially one of the things we were in conversations with SLU about some records, and she had the opportunity through that to basically ask questions about the records we were asking for from SLU, and we were contacted by her attorney because of that, and were able to secure her appearance through contact with her attorney, which at the time was unknown to us who that was at that point.
Do you have a more specific timeline than by the end of the year?
It's going to be close to the end of the year. I mean, it's not going to be next month.
Like November, December?
Probably, yeah.
What about update on
Francis
Francis Howell?
Howell is nearing complete. It's going to be this year as well, and the field work is also complete on that. We did have an auditor retire that was working on that audit, and so that delayed things a little bit for us. But that audit will be coming this year as well.
Donna, answer your question, maybe?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Yes.
Your thoughts on all this, your presence here today?
The reason I'm here today is because the city of St. Louis is hurting with our demographics. And that's because crime and schools are the two reasons people leave the city of St. Louis. And so when this came out, it put our city 20 years backwards. And so we're going to have to work very diligently, and I appreciate the auditor for what he's doing, because this situation has put our city backwards, and we've got to fix this. It's not about, this is not okay, and the taxpayers are very upset. And I very much appreciate the quick movement on the auditor's part.
So there's a bipartisan approach on this, it doesn't matter.
No, absolutely. No. I have some fantastic public schools in my district, but they all have lead windows except for one. Why didn't the money go into fixing these schools for the health of the children? Why didn't the money go in to raise the pay of the teachers? Why didn't the money go into transportation? that is what's upsetting me, because we have kids who are behind because during COVID, they are still not up to par where they should be. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that some English is their second language, and they came from families where they weren't as proficient on the computers, and for some kids, they never turned them on during COVID. So this is not a time where we have time to spare. We have got to focus on what's in the best interest of the children in the city of St. Louis.
Scott, any comment on what's going on in Jackson County with the property tax issue?
Well, yeah, we're still there, working on the audit that is very important to the people in Jackson County, related to the reassessment and the average 30% increase in assessed valuation of residential properties that took place there last year, and really the violation of people's rights to inspections and appeals. And obviously the tax commission issued an order yesterday that essentially restated every point that we made in our letter that we released at the end of last year, that we did release to ensure that the taxpayers in Jackson County had the right to had the ability to preserve their right to an appeal and participate in any kind of remedy that ended up being delivered on this, whether it be delivered through an order of the circuit court, an order of the tax commission, or just correcting their mistakes at the assessment department. So we are still there. There was a bit of a delay in the progress on that audit due to the lawsuit that was filed. The county used that as a reason to slow down cooperation a little bit on our end to get the audit completed, and that lawsuit was just dismissed yesterday. And so we're going to continue that work, and I don't know what's going to come of it. Jackson County's said they're essentially going to ignore the order of the tax commission, and so I'm not an attorney. I don't know exactly where they will go from here. If that means that because the lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, which essentially means they can't refile that case, and so I don't know if that's going to stop the Attorney General's office from being able to proceed with trying to enforce the tax commission's order or not. But hopefully the remedy the tax commission's attempting to provide will be able to be enforced in some way, or if not, that there's some remedy still available now that lawsuit's been dismissed in Jackson County, and we'll see what takes place there. But one thing is for sure, and the message I would give to the taxpayers in Jackson County is, regardless of what's going on with the lawsuit and the tax commission's order, our work to continue the audit and complete it of the assessment department, to hopefully provide a remedy on this last reassessment, but if nothing else, try to make sure this doesn't happen to them again next year, is going to continue. Anybody else?
Were you aware of how hard the school district worked over the years to regain accreditation here and straighten things out?
I know it was a long and arduous process, and that a lot of work went in, and so it's really disappointing to see some of the concerns that are now out there, the allegations that are out there, because the kids of St. Louis desperately need and deserve to have a school district that can provide them a quality education and not have a bunch of distractions related to their financial management of the district. They need to really be focusing on what's going on in the classroom, and so we want to help fix those problems so that they can do that and try to give these kids the education they deserve. Last thing I'll just say is, I love St. Louis. We're here for the people of St. Louis, and we'll continue to be wherever we need to, whether it's the school district or looking at the Justice Center, because St. Louis is the economic engine. One of the economic engines in the region is certainly the biggest economic engine for the state of Missouri, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can in the State Auditor's office to help them find their way through challenges that have obviously been experienced in a multitude of ways, and we're committed to continuing that work on all fronts. Thank you.